Thank you for pressing play. Your presence here brings joy to my heart. Hello and a warm welcome to our channel. Today, we're delving into 1982 Atlantic hurricane season. The 1982 Atlantic hurricane season was an extremely inactive Atlantic hurricane season with 5 named tropical storms and 1 subtropical storm. 2 storms became hurricanes, one of which reached major hurricane status. The season officially began on June 1, 1982, and lasted until November 30, 1982. These dates conventionally delimit the period of each year when most tropical cyclones form in the Atlantic basin. Activity started early with Hurricane Alberto forming on the first day of the season. Alberto threatened the southwestern Florida coast as a tropical storm, meadering offshore in the southeastern Gulf of Mexico and causing 23 fatalities in Cuba. The next system, a subtropical storm, formed later in June and affected the same area as Alberto, causing $10 million in damage. Tropical Storm Beryl formed on August 28, after a quiet July in the open Atlantic Ocean. Beryl grazed Cape Verde, killing 3 people. Tropical Depression 3 formed just behind Beryl, tracking east and north of the Caribbean Sea in early September. Soon after the dissipation of Beryl, Tropical Storm Chris formed in the Gulf of Mexico on September 9. Chris stayed a weak storm, making landfall near Sabine Pass, Texas, and dissipating overland on September 13. Hurricane Debby was the next storm and the strongest of the season. The formative stage of Debby produced rainfall in Puerto Rico and soon strengthened into a Category 4 major hurricane. Debby passed by Newfoundland on September 18 and merged with a non-tropical low on September 20. In mid-September, Tropical Depression 6 formed west of Africa and tracked west-northwest, dissipating before reaching the Leeward Islands on September 20. Its remnant thunderstorm activity continued moving west-northwest, forming Tropical Depression 7 which moved near Bermuda on September 25 before dissipating offshore Nova Scotia. The final storm of the season, Tropical Storm Ernesto, was the shortest-lasting system and stayed out to sea, dissipating on October 2. In this chapter, we'll be shedding light on season summary and its role in shaping our understanding. The season was very inactive because of strong vertical wind shear due to stronger than normal westerly winds aloft. The wind shear was contributed by a variety of factors including a very strong El Niño. Vertical wind shear was strong enough to disrupt convection in areas of disturbed weather so they could not develop further. The El Niño which affected this hurricane season extended into the 1983 Atlantic hurricane season. Higher than average values of African mineral dust during the most active portion of the hurricane season could have also suppressed tropical cyclone activity. The season's activity was reflected with a cumulative accumulated cyclone energy ACE rating of 32, which is classified as below normal. ACE is, broadly speaking, a measure of the power of the hurricane multiplied by the length of time it existed, so storms that last a long time, as well as particularly strong hurricanes, have high ACEs. ACE is only calculated for fall advisories on tropical systems at or exceeding 34 knots 39 miles per hour, 63 or tropical storm strength. Although officially, subtropical cyclones are excluded from the total, the figure above includes periods when fully tropical storms were in a subtropical phase. In this chapter, we'll be shedding light on systems and its role in shaping our understanding. Midsize equal width height plottery equal top bottom right left legend equal columns left top column width. Aligners equal early dat format equaled my period equal from till time axis equal orientation horizontal sculminate equal grid black unit month increment start colors. A canvas value gray edge value redded value obliged tropical depression miles per arc mids value obliged tropical storm miles per arc mid value obliged category 1 miles per arc mid value obliged category 2 miles per arc mid value obliged category 3 miles per arc mid value obliged category 4 miles per arc mid value obliged category 5 miles per arc. Background colors equal canvas bar data. Bar sesh hurricane bar month. Plot data. Barsesh hurricane with Aline lift font size shift for Anketil frontal Coac text Albertuk frontal Coats text Stone SS frontal Coats text Beryl TS frontal Coat text 3TD frontal Coats text Chris TS frontal Coat text Debby frontal Coat text 6TD Barset Break frontal Coat text 7TD frontal Coats text Ernesto TS by month with Aline center font size shift 20 Anchor middle Coat canvas frontal text June frontal text July frontal text August frontal text September frontal text October. Text editor. Pose text from the pose text Saffir-Simpson scale. Get ready for a thought-provoking discussion as we delve into Hurricane Alberto and its impact on our understanding. On June 1, a tropical depression formed off western Cuba from an organized cloud system. It moved slowly northeastward through the Gulf of Mexico and strengthened into Tropical Storm Alberto on June 3. Alberto traveled generally northeast on an erratic course and briefly intensified to a Category 1 hurricane, one of the earliest hurricanes of June, and the earliest date for a hurricane in the Atlantic Ocean since Hurricane Irma in May 1970. Due to strengthening vertical wind shear, Alberto then quickly weakened into a tropical storm, doubled back to the west, and dissipated near the Florida Keys on June 6. Alberto is an example of a storm to enter the Gulf of Mexico and dissipating while never making landfall, which is an unusual event. Though the storm never made landfall, 23 deaths were reported in Cuba from significant flooding, the worst in 32 years. Southern Florida experienced moderate rainfall, with a peak of 16.47 occurring in Tavernier. As we progress through this video, let's now turn our gaze towards Subtropical Storm 1. The first subtropical storm of the season formed in the east-central Gulf of Mexico on June 18 and moved northeast for its entire life cycle. It crossed the Florida Peninsula that night, causing the issuance of numerous severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings. The cyclone also dropped heavy rainfall, peaking at 10.72 in 8 miles 13 southwest of DeSoto County, Florida. The storm continued, crossing the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and retained its strength until June 20 when it became extratropical near Newfoundland. The cyclone caused 3 deaths in Florida, sank a fishing trawler off the coast of North Carolina, and caused $10 million in damage 1982 USD. This was the only subtropical or tropical cyclone to impact the eastern seaboard this season. Now, let's shift our perspective and explore Tropical Storm Beryl through a fresh lens, unlocking new perspectives. A well-developed tropical wave exited Africa on August 27. The next day, it developed into a tropical depression, and shortly thereafter it intensified into Tropical Storm Beryl. On August 29, it passed just south of Cape Verde as it continued intensifying on its west-northwest track. An eye feature appeared in the convection on August 31, suggesting winds of near-hurricane status, since the feature was located on the western side of the deep convection and the storm was slightly asymmetric. The intensity was held just below hurricane status. Shortly after, strong wind shear caused the storm to deteriorate, leaving the low-level circulation exposed on the western side. Beryl weakened to a tropical depression the next day due to the lack of convection, and it continued westward without redevelopment. On September 5, a reconnaissance flight into the depression found winds of 65 miles per hour. This was deemed unrepresentative of the actual intensity as it was recorded in a squall line. The depression became disorganized once more, and by September 6, it was no longer identifiable on satellites. Early in its duration, Tropical Storm Beryl produced heavy rainfall and gusty winds on the Cape Verde island of Sal. The storm caused moderate damage across the archipelago, totaling $3 million 1982 USD. The passage of Beryl resulted in 3 casualties in Brava Island, as well as 122 injuries. In the period after the storm's passage, the United States provided humanitarian aid and economic assistance to the country, helping the archipelago to reverse the effects of Beryl. Let's zoom in on Tropical Depression 3 and understand its implications. This system formed east of the Lesser Antilles on September 6 to the southeast of Tropical Storm Beryl in the tropical North Atlantic Ocean. The depression moved northeast of the Leeward Islands during the afternoon of September 7 while experiencing southwest vertical wind shear, and moved into the southwest North Atlantic before dissipating east of the Bahamas on September 9. Prepare yourself for an eye-opening discussion on Tropical Storm Chris in the upcoming portion of this video. A surface low-pressure area developed on September 8 in the Gulf of Mexico. It drifted westward, and the next day it organized into a subtropical depression. Under the influence of a trough of low pressure, the depression turned northward, and after steadily becoming better organized it transitioned into Tropical Storm Chris by late on September 10. The storm attained peak winds of 65 miles per hour before moving ashore near Sabine Pass in Texas. Chris continued inland until it dissipated over central Arkansas on September 13. Prior to making landfall, as many as 6,500 people evacuated from southern Louisiana, while offshore many oil workers were evacuated inland. Chris produced moderate rainfall along its path, peaking at 16 in Debby, Louisiana, with totals of over 10 in Mississippi and Tennessee. The rainfall caused locally severe flooding as far inland as Tennessee and Kentucky, with flooding of some rivers reported siteweb. Authors: Geological Survey, Kansas Water Science Center. The summary of significant floods in the United States, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, 1970 through 1989, 1982. Publishers: Geological Survey, Kansas Water Science Center. Access date March 28, 2007. Subd reports Subd archive Subd reports archive date March 25, 2007. Status live. The storm spawned 9 tornadoes, of which 4 were stronger on the Fujita scale. Upon moving ashore, the hurricane produced a 5-foot to 6-foot storm tide, resulting in severe damage to several boats in the Gulf of Mexico. Throughout its path, damage totaled $2,019,82 USD. Now, let's shift our perspective and explore Hurricane Debby through a fresh lens, unlocking new perspectives. A tropical wave moved westward offshore the coast of Africa. The wave traveled across the Atlantic and organized into a tropical depression off the northern coast of the Dominican Republic on September 13. The depression turned north and strengthened into Tropical Storm Debby on September 14 and then a hurricane early the next day. Debby moved north-northeast, past just east of Bermuda. Debby continued strengthening as it moved north, peaking as a Category 4 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 130 miles per hour to 115. The storm weakened significantly before passing to the southeast of Newfoundland on September 18, by which time Debby was a Category 2. The storm accelerated and began weakening over the colder waters of the North Atlantic. Debby became extratropical over the far North Atlantic and merged with a strong non-tropical system which was developing over British Isles on September 20. The precursor disturbance to Debby dropped heavy rainfall across Puerto Rico, peaking at 12.86 in the southwestern portion of the island. Wind gusts on Bermuda approached 70 miles per hour 110, leaving minor damage. Debby had little effect on Atlantic Canada outside of heavy rainfall. Tropical storm force winds were also recorded at Cape Verde. A storm development related to Debby left 2 dead in Finland. As we enter this new phase, let's uncover the impact of Tropical Depression 6 on our broader topic. This tropical depression formed 900 miles west of the Cape Verde Islands on September 16 and moved west-northwest across the tropical Atlantic Ocean. The system moved within 750 miles east of the Leeward Islands before dissipating on September 20. Get ready for a captivating exploration as we unravel the layers of Tropical Depression 7 and their profound significance. The remnant area of disturbed weather from Tropical Depression 6 continued moving west-northwest into the southwest North Atlantic. A tropical depression formed from this area 275 miles west of Bermuda on September 25. The system recurved off the north and northeast, dissipating in North Atlantic shipping lanes southeast of Nova Scotia on September 27. In the upcoming section, we'll be shining a light on Tropical Storm Ernesto. A tropical wave emerged into the Atlantic from the west coast of Africa on September 23. The west side of the wave expanded and was designated Tropical Depression 8 on September 30. The depression intensified, making a sharp turn on October 1. A reconnaissance flight found 40 miles per hour winds with a pressure of 1,003 m and the depression was given the name Ernesto. A second reconnaissance flight on October 1 recorded sustained winds of 71 miles per hour with a pressure of 997 m. However, on October 2, Ernesto rapidly weakened and by the next day, the cyclone became unidentifiable after merging with an extratropical low. Ernesto never approached land and caused no reported damage. Now, let's shift our attention to storm names. The following names were used for tropical storms that formed in the North Atlantic in 1982. This is the first time this name set was used since the post-1978 naming change, except for Florence and Helene, which have been previously used in 1954, 1958, 1960, and 1964. Names that were not assigned are marked inch. No names were retired after this season, so all were used again in the 1988 season. Brace yourselves for the next chapter, where we'll be dissecting season effects. This is a table of the storms in 1982 and their landfalls, if any. Deaths in parentheses are additional and indirect. An example of an indirect death would be a traffic accident, but are still storm-related. Damage and deaths include totals while the storm was extratropical or a wave or low. Alberto Category 1 Hurricane Cuba, Florida 1 Southeastern United States, Atlantic Canada Beryl Cape Verde Islands 3 None Crisp Southern United States Debby Category 4 Hurricane Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, Bermuda, Newfoundland 6 Unknown None 7 None Ernesto. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.